Hello and welcome to Blockchain Gaming World Daily with me, John Jordan. So the news we're looking at today is that Forte has raised $185 million at a $1 billion valuation for its blockchain game platform. So that seems pretty clear. I guess we need to unpick this a little bit, and some of the unpicking is around Forte and what Forte does, and some unpicking is around the size of the investment and the valuation. So it is interesting that last week we also had a blockchain game company, Animoca Brands, do a big funding round. They did just under $89 million. The 888 meme raise, as we discussed with their chairman in the podcast. Also had a $1 billion valuation. So Animoca Brands is now valued at $1 billion, and Forte now valued at $1 billion, both blockchain game companies. The difference is Animoca Brands has a whole bunch of games already out. So F1 Delta Time, I guess, being the most famous, has the sandbox going live, has lots of investments in lots of other companies, and it's sort of well known in the space. So the Animoca Brands people are, have done a lot of things, and are sort of part of the kind of, I guess I would call them the blockchain game community. So that's sort of, whether you agree that Animoca Brands is worth $1 billion or not, it doesn't really matter. The people who've put money in have put money in at that valuation. So that's what the kind of assumption is, at least in future, that company will be worth, or we'll see kind of business at that sort of scale. So Forte is different. So Forte is, I wouldn't say they're a secretive company, but it could be seen that way. So Forte have been around actually for since 2018. And they've always been there as a blockchain game company. They did a raise back then, but they've not really. No one's ever heard of them really since then. They're a really sort of under publicized company, certainly from that point of view, which I think is why some of the surprises happened for this $185 million raise and the $1 billion valuation. Because as far as I understand, they don't really have a business at the moment. And I've not heard of any live products, although we'll see in this article that there is some suggestion that there's stuff going on. So I guess there's a bit of surprise from that point of view, that this company, who, I think they're a good company. I mean, the pedigree is very good. So that the founder is Kevin Chu, who founded a company called Kabam. It was a very successful free-to-play mobile and PC game company, and it was eventually kind of sold off. So bits of it went to Foxnet, now gone to Scopely, and other bits of it went to Netmarble. So that company that Kabam company kind of had a valuation of well over $1 billion when it got kind of sold out. And some of the games that have come out of that are Marvel Strike Force is, I guess, the most famous now. Very successful game. So he has a pedigree for being a successful entrepreneur, which is why he can get funding, such funding for new products. He's also part of the Overwatch esports community, so he runs the Seoul Dynasty team, obviously the South Korean team, and also here he's invested and runs a company called Rally.io. So they are a blockchain blockchain creators kind of platform. So creators can come in there and create their own tokens. There are a few kind of companies who do similar things. So basically, they're sort of a platform where you can kind of create communities and create cryptocurrencies, and then kind of give these out as rewards. Not very clear how Rally is doing, to be honest. Again, not a company that gets an awful amount of press. So that's the pedigree. That's the thinking behind this raise. So I'm just going to quickly go through this is the announcement in GamesBeat. It's actually quite an interesting article. It's quite a long article, and it doesn't actually shed a vast amount of light on what they're doing. So the Forte CEO is this guy Josh Williams. Again, not particularly, not someone I've ever come across, not someone who's particularly high profile in the industry. That could be just my perception on that. So I'm happy to be proven wrong on this. But they've been doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes. They just launched their beta platform a year ago with the first games. Been growing very quickly. They've created 10 million wallets, and they're in 10 live games now. So I'm not saying, if he said that, then obviously I can't say that's not true. What I can say is I've never heard of any of the games that they're in, and there's obviously someone who's very involved in blockchain games and tries to be cognizant of everything that's going on. That surprises me personally a little bit. So I'm not saying there aren't 10 live games with their tech in there, or that they've made 10 million wallets. I guess the issue here would be, it's very easy to create blockchain wallets. You can create millions of blockchain wallets sort of automatically. I'm not saying they've done this here, but it's not very clear to me there are 10 million gaming individuals who have created wallets and understand they've created wallets. So it could be because this is sort of behind the scenes technology that people who are playing these games that are running to some degree on a blockchain are creating accounts and they don't really understand that they're blockchain wallets. So that definitely could be the case, and that seems to me would be the most obvious solution to this kind of question. So these games could be live, could be using Forte's platform, could be even using the blockchain, a proper live blockchain, without people sort of knowing and without much publicity happening. And obviously they're in beta, so maybe they're not talking about it from that point of view. So what's interesting about kind of what they're doing is that they're sort of building their own. They're not building their own blockchain, as far as I can see. They're sort of building their own sort of interchange. So we will come on. We'll look at their website and look at some of this stuff. Basically, what they're trying to do is exactly what every other blockchain game company is doing, which is allowing people to own their NFTs and trade them, and do that in a decentralized way. So they're not doing anything particularly different from everyone else. So I'm just going to go through all this here. So the company who has the lead investor is these guys, Griffin Gaming Partners, who are pretty well known games VC. They've done some nice deals. So they're not some sort of shady company at all. They've made a big bet though. It's a lot of money for them. So it could be interesting to see how that plays out for them. Axie Infinity here. Obviously, Axie Infinity is not running on Forte. So waffle. This is Kevin Chu here at a VentureBeat conference. So I'm just looking for this bit here because it just sort of goes on. Okay, so Forte has built its platform to be chain agnostic, so it can go on, it can run on any sort of blockchains, and is going through some sort of licensing stuff, I guess, because they're a US company. So basically, it's just, it doesn't matter what platform it's running on, whether something like Ethereum or Flow, I guess, potentially, layer 2 solutions, Polygon, things like that. But what they're doing here is they're using the Interledger protocol, which is not something I know an awful lot of. It's sort of in the blockchain. It's sort of not really a proper blockchain, though. Maybe I'm technically being wrong there, but it's sort of more like a sort of, as it says, an interchange sort of protocol. It's an open source sort of situation. And what they're doing, what they're using is they're building on top of this to connect between any blockchain. So it's not very clear when it comes down to these 10 million wallets. I presume these are just wallets in this Interledger protocol where they're sort of sitting in their own sort of permission private blockchain, and then they can connect to other blockchains, but they're not really doing that at the moment. Obviously, no one's connecting assets into Ethereum at the moment because the gas fees are too expensive. So there is an interesting bit here, and actually that's where Forte's, it's said at least, this is where Forte's revenue model comes. So they're sort of paying to be actually a kind of middleman, a sort of market maker, to provide liquidity between all these blockchains. So we've got here. This is interesting. So there are 25 game developers with more than 8 million players are actively using Forte's technology. Again, this doesn't mean that 25 developers with more than 8 million players, those players are actively using Forte. This is just there's 25 game developers who are working with them, and their games have more than 8 million players. So this is a little bit confusing, I think. I don't think there's 8 million players using Forte's technology. Again, it could be wrong on that. They say more than 5 million NFTs have been minted. Obviously, we have 10 million wallets created. So again, I'm not saying that is incorrect. I'd be interested to know what blockchain they're being minted on, and how they're being used in games. Now, the one thing that we have known about Forte, and I have done some videos on, is they do have an interesting selection of developers, and they're definitely coming at the angle of, let's take people who know about making games and let them make kind of games with these kind of economies in there, and let's not call them blockchain games, and potentially you could retrofit Forte to existing games. That's my belief, at least. So you don't need to make a new game and stick it on a blockchain. You can basically take a game that already has users and sort of add blockchain into that, and that would kind of play into what we see, what they're kind of commenting on, that they've got a lot of activity through their platform. And my assumption is no one knows that is going through a blockchain, or I'm not quite sure what blockchain that's going through, because the users don't know. So the users could be playing games that are using the Forte platform, but it's not very, they don't know that it's using a blockchain. So I mean, the biggest thing here is Will Wright. So Will Wright, creator of The Sims, is massive. Obviously, his new company has a deal with Forte. I think they're kind of funding developers to some degree. Jeff Turnell, not quite well known, or not as well known as Will Wright, but known for kind of Star Siege. He's been around for a long time making games, so these people know what they're doing. We have all these other companies. Again, these are not sort of AAA game developers, but they are known game developers or publishers or startups who are certainly Deca Games, well known in the mobile space. So I don't think any of these people have launched new games announcing that they're doing stuff with Forte. I've looked, I've not seen any live games with Forte that I can like. Cause obviously, if I saw there was a live game with Forte, I'd go and play it and do a video on it. But I haven't seen that yet. So they got all this money. I mean, what's interesting here is, I guess, that this amount of money, even for a company no one's ever heard of, is a lot of money for us. It's a Series A round. It's their first big funding round. So that will, not that people aren't aware of blockchain in the game space now because there's so much going on. But this just kind of makes it clear there's a lot of money flowing into this now, and game developers who want money should probably be looking at this. So we have existing, whole bunch of existing VCs who basically funded Forte's first round, the seed round, have also been investing into this new round. So Andreas and Horowitz, kind of the best known, but these other ones are fairly well known as well. And Riot already has more than 100 employees, so it's, it's a pretty big scale sort of company. Again, this is a little bit odd because we don't know really what's going on with Forte, and it's hard to get an angle on it. And I guess that's why I'm sort of struggling to try and place it into context. Just because there's some numbers out there, I don't think those numbers are overt lies, but I want to know exactly what those numbers actually mean. And partly it's because we just, Forte have been quite quiet about stuff. I thought it's worth having just a quick look at the Forte website while we're here. So it's forte.io, and it is kind of interesting that they don't really, they focus very much on the economy. So they do mention blockchain here. It's not like they're not mentioning blockchain, but it's kind of, it's quite a light website on detail, which is kind of Forte's forte, I should say. So they're building this tech platform. We know they've got a grant fund for game developers who are interested in that. So obviously that's where this big raise of money is going, and they are kind of active. They say they're active in the community to help people understand blockchain. Well, we haven't seen very much of that at the moment. Have NFTs for games. So this is kind of all the stuff that we know about blockchains. Having these new economic systems built in compliance, so the legal stuff is taken care of. We have seamless wallets. So I think this is where this 10 million is coming from. People just kind of creating these wallets and don't know that they're there. These are some of the game studios. We looked at some of these before. These are interesting. Netmarble is interesting. It's a very big South Korean publisher. Not quite sure what they're doing really. Not been announced. Disruptor Bean, also sort of well-known Boston developer. And we have some of these. You can go to the website and actually have interviews. Have interviews with some of these people who are working with them. It doesn't actually say what they're doing with Forte, unfortunately. It just sort of is a kind of interesting talking about the kind of history of these people. So that's kind of okay. but as I say, as a website, this is really quite light. Hopefully this will change over time. Now they've got all this money, and Forte are going to have to be more open and more kind of do this sort of advocacy and education. We want more people to be advocating for blockchain games, and now they've got all this money. Hopefully they'll be doing that, and we'll get a bit more understanding about what they're up to. Anyway, thanks for watching the video. This is Blockchain Gaming World, where we trying to do our own little version of advocacy and education, although without $185 million, without any $1 million behind us. But if you like this sort of stuff, please do subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and see you soon.